Hello, BLB Familia. Welcome back to BLB. We are, Tucker and I, my esteemed friend Tucker, we are perhaps doing the largest movie review undertaking that we've done on this channel to date. We are constantly one-upping ourselves,
Second
just like,
to the quest for the bestest, I
of
would like to
course,
want to add. That's
we
a
are
slightly larger overtake. It's an
we are
overtaking.
Tucker, we are one-upping ourselves in these, much like the franchise that we are covering today, The Fast and the Furious. You might be familiar with this franchise. It sort of went through from an underground sort of fun crime franchise to one of the largest action franchises in blockbuster history.
True.
But before we do that, I want you to speed over to that subscribe button, hit subscribe, speed down, do a speed drift down to the description of this video, and join our Discord server so you can talk to us about all the Fast and Furious movies or anything that you'd like, really. But Tucker, we are here today to rank each and every Fast and Furious movie. There are 10 of them.
That we're going to
So
be ranking today. Correct.
yes, exactly. So, Tucker, I think, well, first of all, I have three criteria that I
Yes, sure.
have evaluated that I think would be best to talk about these movies with. Those are, of course, fast, fun, and familiar.
Sure. Yeah.
I think
The
that,
three criteria that are required for every good Fast and
yeah,
Furious movie. Will some of them be lacking in that? Probably.
it is the Triforce of the Fast and Furious franchise,
The three F's, the big F's.
the big Fs. And Tucker, we need to get started with the biggest F, the
The
first
first
F,
movie.
the first F, the Fast and the Furious.
Correct.
Now, Tucker, it's been a while since you and I saw this.
Yeah, it's been a
It's
long
it's
time.
been a minute. But Tucker, what do you remember from The Fast and the Furious?
Basically nothing.
All the way back from 2001, I believe.
Yeah, it came out in 2001, but it feels like 2001 when we watched it because
Yeah,
that was what we saw in March or something.
something like that.
And I did not care at all. I begrudgingly watched this movie because you're like, oh, the ninth one's coming out, and I just did not care at all.
Yeah.
And I slept through a solid chunk of it, and I thought everything about it was incredibly obnoxious. And I do still to this day, even after getting a lot of appreciation for the series, I don't think it's a good movie.
Okay.
In fact, I think it's a bad movie, and it's going to be
Mm.
pretty low on our list. But everything about its style frustrated me, and I'm very glad that they quickly pushed that aside for something a little more bombast as compared
Sure.
to just grungy guys. We're going to do cars and people in skimpy
It's
outfits.
listen. It's skimpy outfits and sweaty people all the
Yep.
way down. All right.
Yep.
But Tucker, we have three criteria,
Just like our house.
just like our house: skimpy outfits and sweaty dudes.
Yep.
So, Tucker, let's start off fast. How much car stuff, how much action stuff is in The Fast and the Furious?
This is one of the most racing focused
Yeah,
movies
of course.
because we've got the very poorly named race wars that happen in this film. It's the focus of the conflict.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of chases because you got good old Brian O'Connor
Hmm.
being an underground cop. I think the fast factor for this, especially being the first movie in the franchise and focusing more solidly on actual street races,
Yeah,
is certainly there. That's something I'll
sure.
never deny.
There's also the probably the largest stunt of this, which is the semi chase. You know, when they're like climbing from cars onto semis, trying to steal DVD players, which is how this franchise started, of
Yeah.
all things. But I think I mean, that is actually some pretty impressive stunt work, especially for a movie that didn't have a huge budget, and this is 2001. It's still pretty impressive to look at from like a maybe like a smaller budget action perspective.
Yep. So it's got the fast.
It's got the fast, maybe not as much as some of the other movies we'll get to, but
Mhm.
talking about the fun. This movie isn't as fun, I would say.
No,
It takes itself a little bit seriously.
too
Of
seriously.
course, you get Brian, you get Dom introduced to each other, and they butt heads a little bit. But it definitely still has its moments, I'd say.
I mean, it has moments being in that there are action sequences in it, but
Yeah.
I don't think they're not particularly memorable. I mean, the one that you talked about climbing on trucks is really about it, considering most of the action sequences are just races and they're
Hmm.
edited very similarly. There's not really any necessarily too many spins on them. So the fun I would say is kind of lacking, which I think is
Okay.
why this movie doesn't necessarily stand up to some of the later entries.
Sure.
But I think it also is lacking in the familia
Ah,
because the familia hadn't been set up yet. That doesn't
true.
mean that they're not there. I think the relationship being built, but the seeds of relationship being built between Mia and Letty and Dom and Brian are good, and they certainly pay off a lot down the line. But
Mhm.
in this movie, there's not a ton in terms of relationship building. The only caveat to that being when Brian reveals himself to be an FBI agent at the
Yeah.
end to save Dom's life, and that's the beginning of their friendship, and it is a good moment. It's one of my favorite Brian O'Connor moments. But
Yeah.
on the whole, there's not really a group dynamic in this, which is something I really look for in a Fast and Furious movie, and this one just does not really have that.
Sure, fair enough. I completely agree with all your statements there. So the Fast and the Furious is going at spot number 1 so
Yep.
far. Okay. I've made a note, and we're moving on, Tucker, to the aptly named Too Fast and Too Furious.
Very, very apt. Very, God, and we're going to talk about this a little bit throughout the naming conventions of this
Oh,
godforsaken series. This is probably the weirdest one, if we're being honest. So it's all downhill from here, folks.
yes.
But I love the fact that they call it something so stupid. And honestly, unpopular opinion, this is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean it's up there. So let's talk about the Fast, Tucker. So this movie famously has the grotesquely cartoonish CGI racing sequences, and I think this is maybe where we get the introduction of like they press the NOS buttons in their car, and the camera goes inside of the engine. You're
Yeah,
swooping
yeah.
around in the tubes to see the fire come out the back end of the tailpipe.
Mhm.
And then you have candy colored cars, and they hit the NOS buttons, and it like they transcend time and space as like the world around them warps and warbles.
That's how
And
fast it is.
it's fast. Let me tell you, they are too fast in this.
Yeah, and I do think that this is what the direction that I was excited to see the series go. As soon as you get in, and so we're putting it down. This movie's got the fast.
It's got the fast.
As we're transferring to fun, I think that's really where this one is quite a step up above the
Yeah,
first one.
yeah.
Is memorable action sequences and
Hmm.
set piece moments. Not only do you have them cresting over the drawbridge in the opening sequence with their Power Ranger color coded cars, which is
Yeah.
great, and you have the hundreds and hundreds of cars coming out of a garage and
Yeah.
flooding onto the highway
Oh,
to
see,
see if there's cops.
I was disappointed because from memory, I thought that was in the first movie, so I was severely
Mm,
disappointed when that didn't happen. But yeah, there's the sequence at the end where Brian and Roman, because
yes.
again, for layman's the
Let's get to
franchise,
we'll get to family in a second.
we'll get to family in a second, but for layman's, Dom isn't in this one.
Yep.
Paul, Paul Walker teams up with Roman,
Roman Pierce.
Tyrese Gibson, yes.
Yep.
And they set up this entire like Ocean's 11 type plan to divert the cops away from them, and that involves shoving just hundreds of cars, physically impossible to fit them all in this building, into like an airport hangar. And
Yeah.
they're all driving around and swerving, and the cops are like, whoa, what car are they in, what?
Yeah.
And then
And it's a great sequence. It's really over the
it
top.
is.
And of course, all of that culminates after a battle of people in cars like punching each other and like
Hmm.
using the eject seat and all of
Yeah,
that.
there's the
Uh
ejector seats.
that also culminates in the moment that I think changed Fast and Furious history, which is of course landing a car on a boat,
Yes.
them having that moment of should we do this and just going for it anyway. It's over
That
the top, it's
was
ridiculous.
Yes. That was
It's
the moment where Fast and Furious became Fast and
Fast and
Furious.
Furious, correct. And I think not only that, but talking about Familia, the relationship between Roman and Brian is fantastic. I love how he grows throughout
Hmm.
the film. It really sets up Roman. This is probably one of Roman's better movies, considering he's more of a focus.
Yep.
The smaller cast does allow for that. But not only that, we're also introduced to Tej Parker,
Oh, that's
played by
right.
Chris Ludacris
Bridges.
Bridges. Okay, I don't remember
Yes.
his last name.
Just Ludacris, please.
Yes.
Chris Ludacris Bridges was my father.
But we get the three of them. This Tej quite a bit backgrounded, but the
Yeah.
fact is that we're introduced to two classic Fast and Furious characters.
Hmm.
The relationship between Roman and Brian is fantastic,
Yeah.
and it
Remember
starts
when they
to
have that?
build those relationships that you're really looking for.
Remember when they have that scuffle in the dirt, and the like
I love it.
the cop in charge of Paul Walker is just like sits down and is eating popcorn watching them.
It's
That's
great.
funny.
It's great. Too
Yeah.
Fast, Too Furious, an easy number one for me.
Yeah. Me too. Okay. Now, Tucker, we're moving on to a bit of an odd duck of the franchise, and
Mm-hmm.
that is the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift.
Mm-hmm.
We have no returning characters. Almost. We get introduced instead to Sean Boswell,
Yep.
a 35-year-old high schooler with a southern accent.
Oh, the worst Southern accent on the goddamn
Yeah.
planet.
Oh yeah. And it takes it really is just a diversion from the franchise, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it doesn't have strengths of its own. I mean, obviously we get Han in this,
Yeah.
who is a beloved member of the Fast and Furious family, La
Mm-hmm.
Familia. But other than that, Tucker, what do you recall? Let's start off with Fast again. What do you recall from the car stuff in
Car stuff in
Tokyo
this movie
Drift?
this is probably the movie that it strangely enough focuses the most on car stuff. I know that
Yeah,
sounds crazy to say, but essentially every possible sequence in this movie is them talking about cars or driving cars or crashing cars or racing cars,
or drifting
whatever.
cars.
And drifting, of course, can't
Yeah,
forget that. But so the fast aspect is not lacking, and in fact they go so fast that the cops don't want to catch them, because that's
I
how it works there in
to
Japan.
this day I have not looked up that is true. To people
No
who
fucking
don't
way.
know, according to Han in this movie in Japan, because Sean Boswell goes over to Japan, and cause he has to transfer there because he accidentally causes like an act of uh almost domestic terrorism by driving through a construction site.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, but he goes over to Japan. He meets Han, and Han says to him while driving around, he's like, "Hey, if you go so fast here, the cops know they can't catch you, so they don't even try." To this day, I've not looked that up. I probably not true.
No, no way. But
Yeah,
so it's got the fast.
that's the
The
fast.
fun, I'm gonna say no. Not because it doesn't have this, set pieces. It's got the race where they're streaming them on their little Blackberries or whatever, which is uh,
Hmm.
funny, but it's not a great concept for a set piece race. But I say it doesn't have the fun because during the entire time I watched this movie, I was annoyed. The main character is obnoxious as all hell.
Yeah,
It's got, I think, probably some of the worst editing in the series in terms of just really gross color grading and uh, editing that really gave me a headache. And I did not have fun watching this movie, and it's a very clear one of my least favorites.
okay,
The
yeah.
only benefit being Han, who's a good character and of course is paid off later on.
Hmm.
Um, but he's really the only saving grace of Tokyo Drift. I don't think this is a good movie at all.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to the Familia because the only returning, well, I should
Mm.
say, the for the most part, Han is our new La Familia member. Of course, we get Dom showing up at the end of this, which
Yeah,
ties it into the larger universe. And because of Nine, we know that these guys are actually they're part of the La Familia now,
they are. Yeah,
and we'll get to
it
Nine
took
eventually.
6 more movies to pay off,
Yeah,
but or seven, I guess.
and this is also well, we should also say that Han dies in this movie,
Hmm.
although not really, as I'm sure we'll also get to in a minute. But yeah, this is one that introduces some very strange elements of the Fast and Furious timeline of
Yeah.
events.
Well, this is really the only one that throws a monkey wrench into things.
Yeah,
For the most part, the series is very linear. Tokyo Drift being an exception because they realized that people really liked Han, so they just fucked over the entire thing,
yeah,
which is fine. I honestly don't have any complaints about that. I think that it allows for a fun part of the universe to be introduced. It allows us to
mhm,
be like, oh, they're talking about Tokyo, and then it was Tokyo Drift. It gives us some pop moments in the future,
yeah,
but him being really the only redeeming factor of this film is makes it a clear last place for me out of the three that we've talked
sure,
about so far.
yeah, absolutely. I'm okay with putting Tokyo Drift last. I'm
Yeah.
also okay with that. So we'll mark that down. I'll have a little graphic up there that you've been seeing it so far. But uh, okay, now Tucker, we are on to Drop the does. We took Justin Timberlake's advice from Social Network. We dropped the does. Just Fast and Furious.
Correct.
And this is really a turning point for the franchise. As much as Too Fast, Too Furious started what Fast and Furious became, this is the last one before it gets crazy.
Yeah.
So, and because of that, I think it pales in comparison to a lot of these. Even the trilogy beforehand is very like stuck in the early to mid 2000s with the
grunge and the
with the
editing and
grunge, yeah. And this one is sort of like the middle child, the redhead middle child of the Fast and Furious franchise, because it's not out there zany with stuff. It doesn't have the nostalgia of that original trilogy. It's just somewhere in the middle, and it doesn't do a lot.
Yeah. What we do get though, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the one with the oil tanker at the beginning. Rolling down the hill.
Yes,
and then they drift underneath it. Yes, and unfortunately, and we're gonna be saying this a lot for this movie. It's all downhill from there. The truck is rolling down and downhill. Dom drifts underneath it. Great opening sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't say I remember too much about it after that.
They're just drug runners for the cartel. A lot of this movie is driving in underground tunnels between Mexico and the United States.
Yes.
So Paul Walker's
they,
back at the FBI, and he's hunting down Dom Toretto
mm-hmm.
and all sorts of things.
The fast factor, I mean, they go fast, but on the whole, I say this is the one with the least memorable car sequences.
Yeah. I will say probably the most memorable car thing is either the opening sequence, which Tucker described, which is a little taste of what you'll get in the rest of the franchise right at the beginning before they let you down, and at the end when Dom Toretto, Vin Diesel, does a wheelie. Paul Walker crashes his car, and so does the main cartel villain of this, who also I think has like a swastika tattooed on his neck, even though I'm pretty sure he's a Mexican guy. I don't know. But Dom Toretto comes out of the underground cartel tunnel, and he's downshifting like 16 times in his 70s Dodge Challenger, and he does a his 70s Dodge Charger. Thank you. And he downshifts and he does a wheelie, and he crushes, just eviscerates this guy against the crashed Paul Walker car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the craziest car stuff we get in this one. So
fast, lacking.
Fun?
Very lacking.
Very lacking. Like I said, it's just a lot of cartel stuff. Letty dies. That's no fun.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, and we're gonna say no fun in this one. This I would say is the least fun out of. It's missing that F very clearly. But for Familia, I'd say this movie it isn't lacking that. I think the behind the boringness of the movie on the whole, the very poorly done plot behind it, there are interesting aspects. You've got Dom and Brian not necessarily trusting each other and trying to come to terms with one another. You've got Letty's death, which is an interesting moment for Dom. The return of Dom to the series in a full force. The introduction of Giselle. Gal
Gadot is in this one. A La Familia member for not too long, but she might return. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, okay?
But what I'm trying to say is that while it is lacking overall, I would say the character moments in this are still there, and it does get us ready for 5, which is where La Familia really, really gets its ground.
Sure. So,
but
Tucker,
lacking 2 out of 3 Fs.
That's rough. That's rough, buddy.
That's rough with 1 F instead of 3 Fs, as it should be.
I'm slapping it down at the bottom, Tucker. I'm doing it.
And Fast and Furious, the 4th entry in the franchise, last place. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, but Tucker, we bringing it back with Fast 5, the turning point,
the future.
It's all uphill, Tucker. We're on the uphill now, because lo and behold, who do we get in this movie other than the one, the only? Can you smell what The Rock is cooking? Dwayne The Rock Johnson as DSS agent Luke Hobbs.
That's true, yeah. And this is the movie where it makes it worth watching the first 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's why on the whole, this is one of my favorite ones, I think, pretty easily. It has a really unique spin on them doing a heist rather than, traveling the globe. It's a very relatively contained
Yeah,
story.
all
And not
takes
only
place in
that,
Brazil.
you were saying, who do we get? And you said The Rock. But not only that, we get everyone.
Yes.
Everyone you could want in this amazing like Avengers assembled moment where Roman and Tej and Han and Giselle and Brian and Letty and Dom and they're
Well,
all
not
coming
Letty.
back. Oh, not Letty, sorry.
Yeah.
Is Mia there? Yeah.
Mia shows up, I'm
Yes.
pretty
Yes.
sure.
But regardless, everyone comes together and it starts a beautiful synergy of the group. And I think fast factor definitely
It's
there.
pretty good. There's that entire sequence where they're like trying to perfectly time the drift around the corner to like
That's
miss
cool.
all the security cameras. They're all trying it. They're all trying to do with the drifting of cars. Obviously you have the train heist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's an opening sequence.
yeah, the train heist where they're like using grappling hooks to pull cars out of a train.
Yeah.
Oh god. And then
That's great.
Of course, the end where we get the upping the ante of Fast and Furious stunts where they have attached a bank vault, a giant bank vault to the back of two cars, and they are dragging it, using it as a wrecking ball through the streets of Rio. And boy, let me tell you, Tucker, it's something to behold, really.
It's fantastic. And although I think you kind of jumped the gun there and jumped straight to the fun, because that was the fun factor that we're talking about. I think the fast is there in those sequences, especially that train sequence. I think what they do in this movie, though, is transfer the energy of the fast stuff that was exclusively used for cars in the older one and give us a lot more on the ground sort of action set pieces of people running and chasing people on foot.
Yeah,
We've got
they have a lot of that.
Yeah, there's the chase through the favelas, jumping down off the roofs. They
The Rock is charging through people.
Exactly. If they take the fast and apply it to more, which makes it, I think, while it's not as much car focused, it's very fast and it's got the fun. And boy, goddamn howdy, does it have the familia.
Okay, well, Tucker, this is a little miscommunication that I might have neglected to say, but I'm also including like maybe not. Maybe this should be in familia, the interpersonal, like the joking that happens in the familia. I think that should be a familia aspect. Actually, I'm gonna rescind what I was going to say. And this is it. I mean, this is where we get, Tej and Roman, their classic comedic duo. They shooting barbs back and forth.
Yep.
Dom and Brian, again, they're together. One person we forgot to mention, but she becomes very important is what's her name? Maria?
No, Elena.
Elena, thank you. Who is a Brazilian police officer who Dom falls in love with because, as far as he knows, Letty is dead. Spoilers, she isn't. But yeah, and she becomes very important in a later film.
Yeah. So I think this is just the really beginning of the blossoming of all these relationships. As you said, Tej and Roman, Han and Giselle, their relationship starts there. You really start getting more of Brian and Mia.
Yeah.
It's now together of Dom and Brian really being brothers. You get the introduction of The Rock and his Luke Hobbs and how his dynamic applies to their dynamic and evolves in that way. You've got that other guy who was from One who's sort of there.
I forget his name, but he's in it. He shows up because after the events of Fast and Furious, Brian and Mia have to flee to Central America, to Brazil. Thank you. And they meet up with Vince, who is embedded with the cartel down there. Yeah. And they had through a series of events, they have to go up against the most dangerous man in Rio, in Brazil, this cartel leader, and they steal his fortune by just taking the entire bank vault. And the La Familia lives on that into the next film. But Tucker, we got to rank this one first.
Are you kidding? Easy number one.
Easy number one. Okay.
I think by far and away, because it loses that obnoxious grunge that the first ones had. It brings together the familia in an interesting way. It starts to really ramp up that fun factor with the memorable action set pieces, and you just get a great group dynamic.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you get a heist movie out of it. So what is there not to love?
Exactly. Now, Tucker, we are on to Fast 6.
Fast and Furious 6.
Fast and Furious 6. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The naming conventions,
cutting close there.
They did a little juke for me there, but I got it. And Fast and Furious 6, Tucker. What what a confounding film. What a step up, really.
It's crazy that this movie, I think, follows up perfectly in the footsteps of 5.
Yes.
It takes all those aspects we were really enjoying in 5 and brings them back home to America. It really ramps up even more so those action
Mhm.
set pieces. But if we're gonna go fast, they go real damn fast in this one.
We'll talk.
Quite a few
Something I think
sequences.
we've been neglecting to do is maybe give a bit of a plot synopsis of these. And
Sure.
I don't think it's super important for like 1, 2, and 3. But in 4 they come back together. In 5 we talked about it a little bit. Tucker, Fast and Furious 6 is one of your favorite movies. What
Mhm.
is the plot of Fast and Furious 6? How do we get started at least?
For the core of the plot of Fast and Furious 6, it is the revelation that Letty Oritz is actually alive, or Tease, sorry,
Or yeah.
is actually alive and
Oh my God!
has
What?
amnesia, and the family, we're there, we gotta get her back. Like, she's
Yeah,
part of the family.
absolutely.
We gotta find her, we gotta make sure she's okay and bring her back home.
Hmm.
And that gets them wrapped up in a crazy, now this is where the plots really start going insane. A crazy MacGuffin
International,
race
yeah,
for, yeah.
international espionage against what Luke Evans, and his name is Owen Shaw in
Owen
the
Shaw,
film.
correct. Yeah.
And Owen Shaw has the Dark Avengers of the Fast and Furious team, the La Familia. He
Yep.
has their evil counterparts,
Hmm.
as Roman lays out at one point in the film, and it's just a lot of fun. Boy, oh boy.
So
Also,
we've said already, it's got the fun, and I
it's got
think
the fun.
if we spin that off to talking about more specific action set
Hmm.
pieces, in my opinion, this is probably what some of the best in
Yeah.
the series.
Okay.
Because not only do you have one final action set piece, but you have two, and you feel like it's calming down. You've got a tank on a bridge of a highway, and they're
Oh, the
swinging beneath it,
tank.
and the cars are going between the bridges, and people are on bridges off in the distance. Incredible finishing
Uh,
set piece. But
I'd
guess
like
what? We're
what?
not over.
Oh my
There's a
God.
second one,
Oh
and
my
we go
God.
straight onto a 20 bajillion mile runway, and they're attaching cars onto the wings of planes and driving in and out of it's fantastic. And
Yes.
I love this movie so much.
Well, Tucker, if I can get into a bit more of the minutia of the action sequences, because
Okay,
that's
sure.
really that's a lot where a lot of the strengths of this film lie. Is it starts the Fast and Furious trend of people being fine if they land on the hood of a car.
True.
I think it is Letty. She's
Yes.
teamed up with them at this point. She remembers who she is. She launches herself. I know she's falling off of something.
Hmm.
And Vin Diesel decides, okay, I got this. He swerves. He's on the other side of this highway, and they're on a giant bridge. He
Hmm.
crashes his car through the windshield, grabs Letty, lands on the hood of another car, and both of them are completely
I
fine.
love it. I love it. What a great moment.
We neglected. You said the tank. The tank stuff is absolutely crazy. Where they latch themselves onto it and swerve off and try to use cars to like anchor it to the bottom of this bridge. And then, of course, the plane, where you have people fighting in the plane. People are fighting on top of cars. They're attaching cars to the plane. Cars are flipping and bursting into flames. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure The Rock does I think Vin Diesel does like a leaping headbutt towards someone at some point.
Yeah, yes, he leaps through the
Wow.
windshield of his car like as I heard on the Fast and Furious ranking from Kind of Funny, he
Hmm.
crests the windshield like a dolphin cresting the water.
Yeah.
Just fucking head going through, and
Woo!
it looks really dumb, but we're getting a little hot and bothered here because
Yeah.
this movie not only has those crazy action set pieces, but in my opinion, some of the best character dynamics were shifted
Sure.
to the Familia. Not only do you have Dom and Letty reuniting, and you get a really like raw side of Dom, which is one of the only times in the series where that happens, where he's talking about how much he loved her and how much
Hmm.
their relationships meant, and his words are breaking through that exterior demeanor. You get the sacrifice of Giselle for Han,
Hmm.
and you also get the introduction of Luke Hobbs, the Rock, into La Familia in a more he starts teaming up with them more, and it's this film where I really, not only with 5, but really just start to feel like, man, I love this group dynamic of these
Yeah.
characters. I want
Yeah.
to see all of them get to know one another. We've still got Brian around, which is not for long,
Yeah.
but I think this movie has some of the best character dynamic, if not the best Familia aspect. It's got some of my personal favorite action set pieces. It's got plenty of fast, it's got plenty of furious, it's got plenty of fun, plenty of family. This is my number one. And I don't know
Okay.
how you fall down on it. I don't know if
I
my passion has pushed you to put it number
I'm
one.
with you, Tucker. I'm right there with you. Fast and Furious 6 is an easy number one in this
Awesome.
franchise so far, and we will make it so. We shall make it so.
We will make it so.
But God said, "Let there be Furious 7," and lo and behold, there
Furious
was.
7.
Yes. And
What a movie.
Furious 7, what a movie. We're farther down the pipeline of international espionage here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Tucker, this one is a bit of a revenge film on the part of one British family. Jason Statham. What?
Post credits of Fast and Furious 6.
Oh, yes.
How could we forget
Of
the
course.
revelation that the brother of the main villain from 6, who fell out of a plane and he's all messed up,
Yeah.
is Deckard Shaw, played by Jason Statham, and he
Who
was the one who killed
kills-
Han in
Yes.
3 in Tokyo Drift.
Which
What a great moment.
Which places Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift after the events of Fast and Furious 6. So
Correct.
after 2013, even though that film was shot in 2006. So
Yeah.
But we're on to Furious 7, Tucker. It's a revenge film. Deckard Shaw is hunting down La Familia. He is pissed off as all hell that they put his brother Owen in a coma. We get that opening where he has torn asunder this hospital full of doctors and security guards and SWAT teams. He is an unstoppable force meeting the immovable object of the Familia. But he tries. He blows up La Familia's home, Brian's home, Mia's home. He sending those people on a crash course together, Tucker.
That's true. And I think this movie is the family aspect for me in this one is slightly weaker, as we have lost not only Giselle, naturally, she died in the last one, but it is given slightly by Mia being sent off to be with the kids,
Yes.
and Luke Hobbs being in a cast for the vast majority of the movie.
Yes.
And of course, we have to talk about at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
during the filming of this movie, Paul Walker passed away in a car crash. Rest in peace, Paul Walker. And that, unfortunately and very naturally, makes this film feel disjointed in areas because they had to change the ending and recap things and reuse footage where they could to catch things up.
This is where Tucker and I differ. I absolutely think the unfortunate passing of Paul Walker really captures the heart of this movie, and they managed to give him a very solid send-off at the end of this. Vin Diesel and Paul Walker are very close friends. Vin Diesel has some sort of creative control over these films, and I think it shows. I think a lot. There's especially a conversation between Mia and Brian in this that with the context of Paul's passing is just a lot more heart-wrenching, and maybe through my bleary eyes of tearing up during those sequences, I didn't catch the editing issues that you had, but I just think there's so much heart in this one with the La Familia aspect. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We gotta talk about the fast and the fun, which is, I think, what they would want us to do. The
That's true.
fast, boy oh boy, Tucker. Do you remember when they drive what is apparently the world's fastest supercar through not just two, but 3 skyscrapers, Tucker. 3 giant skyscrapers in Abu Dhabi. They drive a car through them.
They do certainly do that. And I think this movie has, and I was talking about how crazy the set pieces in 6 were. I think these are just more like conceptually, wow, I can't believe that they did this, because not only do they drive a car across the gaps of 3 skyscrapers, they parachute their planes out of a car onto a mountain, and then Paul Walker runs climbs on the bottom of a bus that's falling off a cliff and runs on top of it. After Dom saves a character named Ramsey, which we'll get into, drives down a mountain while they're tumbling, and this movie just ramps and ramps and ramps, and it's insane what they do in this movie.
Paul Walker has a great action foil in Tony Jaa. This film, and Letty has one in who at the time was a very famous, the #1 UFC fighter. Ronda Rousey makes a cameo.
Yeah.
Female artist Iggy Azalea makes a cameo at the beginning of this. this film was chock full of cameos that are fun to like notice and like trace it back to 2015. That's a grand time. But as Tucker said, we get Ramsey in this, who is a hacker and potential love interest for both Tej Parker and Roman Pierce. But she is a hacker who has designed the God's Eye, which is a device that allows you to track like anyone through all sorts of cameras and microphones across the globe.
Yep.
We also get Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody, who is like their puppet master behind the scenes, who is part of a shadowy organization who has unlimited resources and can get them whatever they need. Boy, Tucker, boy, oh boy, just this film. And then we get the return to they're globetrotting throughout this entire movie. They go to Europe,
everywhere.
they go to Abu Dhabi, but at the end, we bring it back to where it all started, Los Angeles, California.
Correct.
And they're racing through the streets. They're being hunted down by Jaimon Hansu in an attack helicopter, and Jason Statham in his supercar, and they're passing Ramsey from car to car, like having to have
hot potato
to upload God's Eye to some sort of mainframe or something. Who knows? But oh Christ, that final action set piece, and then The Rock, he's like,
fine, I'll do it myself.
La Familia needs me, and he flexes out of his cast that he's wearing for this entire movie, and he shows up and he grabs a minigun off of a crashed helicopter and just riddles like another helicopter with the bullets. And then
after he crashes a truck off a bridge into, I think, a helicopter or something, or drone, I believe.
Yeah, it was a drone. Sorry. And throughout all of that, in this final action set piece, Vin Diesel and Jason Statham are going head to head in a parking garage. They crash their cars into each other in a head-on battle, and then Vin Diesel is fighting using like double wrenches, and Jason Statham is using like wreckage from his car. And at the very end, a missile hits that parking garage that they're fighting on top of, and you know they have this. Vin Diesel and Jason Statham have this running thing of like, you thought this was gonna be a street fight, and Vin Diesel has that killer line, which maybe cements that he has superpowers in this franchise, where he says, "The thing about a street fight is, the street always wins," and he stomps, and this entire parking garage crumbles under the weight of a missile strike and a Vin Diesel stomp, and that's the end of the movie. Well, it's not the end. We get the touching send off for Paul Walker, but that is the end of the main plot of that movie. Yeah, and Tucker, it is a wild ride through and through. And,
it really is, and I think it's the reason this one doesn't work as well for me as 5 and 6 is I think it's a little bit too wild. Taking the idea of Mr. Nobody, who's not particularly well implemented in this, he's kind of just another government organization who's played by Kurt Russell, so he's fun. Ramsey, not a good character in this. She's just a MacGuffin who happens to also be attractive.
Okay.
And on the whole, I don't think that last action set piece holds anything in comparison to the double hitter of 6. So this is an interesting movie for me. I think it carries you from 6 to 8, but 7 just doesn't really work for me. And it's one that I'm fine to do a rewatch for at some point, but lacking so much of La Familia in terms of the characters I want to see, some of them dead, which is fine, but some of them just written out of the plot, makes it a little bit underwhelming. And while you do get a heartfelt send-off for Paul Walker, on the whole, the plot is pretty disjointed. La Familia does feel broken up in ways it doesn't need to. And it's a good movie, but it just doesn't hit the highs of the other ones in the franchise.
I completely disagree. And this is an interesting standstill, because this one is far and away my favorite. I think it is the best of the franchise. I think it is a 10 out of 10 in terms of Familia, because that raw emotion that this film has, it feels real in a way that a lot of the other films don't. I think the action set pieces can easily stand up to anything else in the franchise thus far. And Tucker, I don't know what we're gonna do here.
I currently, on my list out of 11, because I also have Too Fast, Too Furious, Tubercharged Prelude on my list. I currently have it at a solid number 7, as it should be.
Wow.
Out of 11.
Wow.
Though that doesn't mean I think it's bad at all. I still got a like on it. I still got it at 4 stars on Letterboxd. Very, very fun movie. It just unfortunately lacks a lot of what I'm looking out of these movies. But
Could I convince you to put it in between 5 and 6? Could I convince you of that?
oh yeah, so putting it in our current second place.
Yes.
Sure, and I think that's fine. I think I'm making quite a bit of a concession there. However,
And so am I, because I think it's quite
you're making
it's
a one place concession.
well, so far. So far. We'll get to the rest of the franchise soon, Tucker, but between 5 and 6 sound good to you?
That's fine.
Yeah, well, okay.
This will be
Sounds
my
good.
concession.
Vin Diesel wouldn't want us to fight about this.
That's
That is something that he would not want.
mm-hmm.
Boy, oh boy, Tucker, we're getting towards the end already.
Mm-hmm.
So soon. We have a few more to go, and the next one, of course, is Fate of the Furious.
The Fate of the Furious.
The Fate of the Furious. And Tucker, I'm gonna pass the torch to you on this one. I did a lot of legwork on Furious 7. I'm gonna pass the torch to you.
Fate of the Furious it's really a continuation of 7 from all the different tonal aspects. It's a lot more globetrotting like 7 was. It's just getting from action set piece to action set piece any way that you can. A lot of extra background characters are introduced in this. The main villain, Cypher, and the way that she ends up manipulating Dom into going against his family to save his family is interesting. But Cypher just is really annoying. Played, of course, by
Charlize Theron.
Charlize Theron, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a creepy hair. Doesn't really work for me. However, we're also introduced to Queenie Shaw, the mother of Owen and Deckard, who's another background character who doesn't really matter that much. She's there. It's fun to see a famous actress.
Charlize. Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren, my bad.
Thank you.
Play a character in this series. And we're also introduced to Dom's son, Brian Toretto, named after his late physically but not canonically friend Brian O'Connor. This movie's got plenty of good action. I don't think they're quite as memorable as the ones in 7 or 6. The zombie car sequence is fantastic. It's super over the top, and you get some interesting stuff in London. You got a submarine battle where a submarine is cresting underneath them as they're driving on top of it, and lots of buildings crashing and burning in this movie. But, and I know we're kind of zipping through these. There's still more to get to. I don't remember a ton about this movie.
Yeah, me neither.
I watched it like less than 2 weeks ago, but on the whole, I just don't think it's quite as memorable as the moments that happen in 5, 6, and 7. And it's still a fun continuation of the series, but it does feel like just that, a continuation.
Sure. Yeah, I'd have to agree with a lot of that, Tucker. This one, my main takeaway from this is that it's a backdoor pilot for Hobbs and Shaw, the spinoff.
100%.
There's a lot of Jason Statham, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson stuff in this,
and it's good stuff. That prison break sequence is awesome.
Yes, that is. I frequently rewatch that scene just because it's The Rock just tearing through people. He gets shot with rubber bullets, and he's like, "Rubber bullets, big mistake." And he grabs a shotgun and he's hitting people with it. He what is it? Oh, he smacks 2 guys who do a full 360 spin just from a bat of his hand. But yeah, I mean, Vin Diesel is he's acting his heart out in this one. I will give him that, because he's being manipulated by Cypher to go against La Familia.
Yeah, lots of internal conflict for Dominic Toretto there,
and it comes out in interesting ways because he's just shouting all the time, and he's either pensively staring. He's either doing or he's "That's all I have," or he's doing something like that. But yeah, it just doesn't live up for me, quite honestly. You listed off like the big action sequences, and honestly, again, they're good. They are zany. They're out of this world, just like you would expect. But there's just something missing about this one. The editing is also a bit weird. We pass it over to F. Gary Gray for this. His directing style. He uses some slow-mo and stuff that really hasn't been in any of the other franchise and feels a little bit out of place.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think his directing issues show most clearly the difference in just the visuals of this movie. It is as bland as a
It's
unfrosted
gray.
Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
Everything is just flat lighting and an uninteresting, cinematic
Oh,
usage.
another thing, they try to introduce Scott Eastwood, and they were
Yeah.
clearly trying to make him like the new
Little nobody.
Brian. They were trying to make him the new Brian, and he just doesn't have that Paul Walker charisma, that
No, he
heart.
does not. No.
And thankfully they abandoned that in the following movie. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else? Should we do our three tenants here, Tucker? Fast.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's got everything
Yeah.
that a Fast and Furious movie needs. Got all three Fs,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just not very strong. It's not as strong in any of them. And I think we're getting to the point where these movies aren't going to be lacking
actually,
in them. They're not going
Tucker,
to lack them completely, but they just might not be as strong.
I'm gonna say this is the weakest familia that we've had in a while. We separate Dom, and the rest of the team doesn't really have a cohesive
Yeah, it doesn't quite work
bond because of that.
without Dom as the core.
Yeah.
I think you're entirely right. We do get Deckard Shaw sort of halfway joining La Familia here.
Yeah.
As he reluctantly teams up
And
with them.
the return of
and
Owen Shaw.
True, yeah, for a second.
Yeah.
And saves Brian Toretto in an
Mhm.
awesome plane set piece where he's holding a baby carriage.
Yeah.
That's a great time.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I do think that it doesn't necessarily contain any of the emotional moments that I enjoyed out of especially 5 and 6. Though they try their best to get you
Mhm.
really invested in the fact that Dom's got this internal
Like I said,
conflict.
Vin
Doesn't
Diesel is
quite work.
acting his heart out in this movie, just
But
screaming.
that doesn't mean that it's good acting.
No.
Vin Diesel is an action actor. He's not an emotional actor, and I think his best emotional moments are in 6 when he's having quieter moments, but when he's raging and being pensive and there's close-up shots of his face that we're not used to getting, it doesn't quite work, and I think it wrenches a little bit of that emotional weight away from the film.
Yeah.
But it's still a solid entry in the Fast and Furious
Yeah.
franchise. I don't have a ton of complaints about this movie. It's just a little bit in comparison. So I think we can easily agree below 5.
Below 5, better than 2?
Yes. Well,
okay.
No, well, I don't think so. Do you think so? I personally prefer Fast and Furious.
No, I also think it's not as good as Too Fast, Too Furious. So
okay.
Between 2 and 1?
Yes, that's fine by me.
Okay, sounds
good.
And
that sounds a little bit low, but I think 8 and above, they're all like at least relatively similar in quality. 8 is not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's still a ton of fun. It's a must watch if you're watching the franchise.
Mhm.
It's one of the highest grossing movies of all time. I know 7 was as well. But I still like it.
Yeah.
But that does bring us into the movie that this one created.
Yeah.
Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw, the first spin-off for the franchise.
Yes. And Tucker, I think our takes on this movie vary sort of differently. I think that Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham are very solid contributing parts to the Fast and Furious franchise. Their barb throwing back and forth is kind of like Tej and Roman in that it's a fun little reprieve. It's fun to get their jokes every so often. But when you're when you're just doing that for 2 hours, I don't know if it works, quite honestly. It also loses, again, a lot of it falls into the trap again of losing having a nondescript visual style than the same as the rest of the Fast and Furious franchise, and severely lacking in Fast. I will also say, not minimal car stuff.
Now, I think what we should say is that it's lacking in Fast, but no way in hell is it lacking in Furious, because I think this, if we take what they introduced The Rock in 5, it takes that Fast element and applies it to on-foot, hand-to-hand action combat sequences, which there's a ton of in this, and I think they're done really well. Yeah. You've got a lot of memorable moments for each of them, using their physical strategies and while also having that banter. Yes. And for me, while it is, of course, lacking the actual La Familia, I think it does a really good job at making a reason why to care about these two characters in specific. You've got now each familiars for each of them. You have the introduction of Hattie Shaw, the sister of both Owen and Deckard, and daughter of Queenie Shaw. I'm just giving you the family tree there, which she becomes the connective tissue between Hobbs and Shaw. You've got Hobbs' daughter more prominently. You talk a little bit more about the fact that Queenie is in jail and how Deckard and Hattie were relationship growing up as brother and sister. So they do give you a good amount of family, just lacking the actual La Familia. And I think well, since it's lacking those, it does a great job with what it has. And for me, the banter between the two of them is just as fantastic as it needs to be. I think this is the funniest movie by a pretty significant margin.
Yeah, I mean, if the jokes work for you, that's perfectly fine. I just have an issue of them doing the same joke is my issue.
I just think it
And
allows them to get so clever
but they
with
don't
them.
change. My issue is they don't change.
I don't think that's an issue, as they keep one-upping themselves and keeping it. It's surprising that they are able to keep it fresh while using essentially the same format of joke, and they always kept keeping me surprised with them.
I think that's subjective if it's fresh or not. I only rewatched about half of this one with you. So maybe if there was the full runtime, it would have been wearing thin on me again. But yeah, I think it's a subjective thing of like how much you can bear just them saying we're different but also the same kind of. You have a small dick or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say the action is also it's still solid for a movie of a large budget. You have David Leitch attached to this, who's basically like the action guy in Hollywood right now, and it shows. I will take back my statement about the fast stuff lacking a little bit, because that final action sequence when they're hooking custom trucks together and pulling in the helicopter that Idris Elba is in, and like The Rock is on the back of one and he has to grab the chain and reattach it. The greatest show of strength in the Fast and Furious franchise, by the way. He just grabs a chain that a helicopter is attached to and just yanks it down. It's incredible. We get a red triple NOS because all three of those cars are NOSing at the same time and they're attached to each other.
It's great.
You get obviously I'm Black Superman from Idris Elba.
Idris Elba, while I would say, I honestly don't even remember his character's name. But so not a great character, but I think one of the better villains in terms of the fact that he is always showing up. He's always against them, and he shows up pretty consistently. And I also like Idris Elba as an actor, so I think he's really fun. And also the fact that he has like
superpowers,
like Predator vision and super strength and whatever.
He's got his super AI bike that'll
that magnets to him, like
and like
he's a really memorable action character. He's not a great character from a personality perspective, but I really enjoyed him as a villain because it's a solid foible, being so much stronger than the other two, to allow their Fast and their Furious to shine.
Sure.
So I personally have this one pretty high up, though I am very willing to concede it down a little bit.
Okay. Would you say better than 2?
Better than 2, I have as yes. Would you be okay with that, or would you rather it down?
I would prefer having it under 2 but above 8. How's that sound?
That's fine.
To you?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay.
And this is it, ladies and gentlemen. We finally reached the moment you have all been waiting for. Of course, I'm sure all of you dedicated BLB fans watched our F9 review very quickly after we saw it, and we're here to place it amongst the franchise. F9 is probably one of the best theater experiences I've ever had, considering the amount of hype that I had building up to this, watching these franchises week to week, and getting to love it, and having really most everything pay off. I mean, I think if we're talking Fast, this movie, the Fast and the fun of this movie is off the goddamn charts. I think it brings back that creativity that 6 and 7 had in terms of the action set pieces, where we are off the charts in terms of returning characters and connections to the greater universe. And the Familia is certainly there as much as they can in terms of they bring back Han. They build out the universe in terms of the Tokyo Drift guys being back. I think this movie is exactly what Fast and Furious is. It's not the best, but it's what it should be. It's what it's leading to. Is fan service, is as creative and over the top as they can get in action set pieces that are unmatched in my opinion. The magnets are so creatively used, and we get as you saw in the trailer, a giant bus
Truck flip.
falling
Yeah,
over.
the truck flip, of course.
I think this movie is fantastic. I
Yeah,
think, for my opinion, we're putting it early. It needs to go to the top. Uh, not very top, but near the top at
sure.
least.
Yeah, I'm fine with
But
that.
how would you feel? But tell me some of your favorite moments. How do you feel about this movie?
It does like the La Familia soap opera stuff of introducing Dom's evil twin brother John Cena.
Yep.
Something that we didn't mention in our F9 review, by the way, is how Cypher like has that really weird line about like, there's some Nordic blood in the Toretto family line, which I guess is to explain how they're different races, how John Cena and
Sure.
Vin Diesel are of different races. It's weird. It's a weird line. I don't know why they put it in, but I mean, they go to space, Tucker.
They
They
do
go
go to
to
space.
space.
They
That
go to
they
space.
did the meme that everyone's been saying they've been going to do for years now, and it is fan service. I totally agree. Um, the, Maybe they'll go to space further in other ones. I mean, but if this is the extent of their space travel, it's a little underwhelming. I want to see
Sure.
Vin Diesel in space.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I think it's a very solid one. I think it also is amongst the top of the franchise.
Yeah.
Um, but and I said this to you, and this ties into my love of like 5, 6, and 7. It just feels like we're missing some La Familia in this, and we're missing Paul Walker for good reason, but also no The Rock.
Yeah. That
Where's
is a
The
little bit
Rock?
strange.
Where's
Mm-hmm.
The Rock? I mean, obviously it's because Vin Diesel and The Rock don't get along on set, so The Rock decided not to show back for this one. But you heard my thoughts in F9 or in our F9 review. I think it's very solid. It does a lot of over the top action stuff with the magnets, like you say. The new people get some play. Ramsey is a more integral part. She does some driving
Mm-hmm.
in this, which she hasn't
Yep.
done in the previous
Which is
ones
fun
because which she hasn't done in the previous ones
because she
because
doesn't know
she
how to
didn't
drive.
know how to drive.
Yep.
The Han stuff is weird because it's just completely convoluted.
Yeah.
They explain it
They
by
Mr.
just
Nobody it out.
they're like Mr. Nobody did a thing, and that's why Han is here.
Mm-hmm.
Then they introduce that weird plot element of like the girl that he mentored and look after,
Yeah.
which will maybe be a thing. Maybe they'll get a spin-off, who's to say? But overall, I don't think it was handled or explained well. And so it's like I said, it's among the top for me, but not the top. So Tucker, I'll make you a proposition, deal or
Okay.
no deal style here. How do you feel about number 3 in our placement between 5 and 7?
That's fine by me. And
Okay.
I want you. I've got 6 at the top, which is where I want 6.
Yep.
I've got 9 near the top, which is where I want
I
9.
got
So
7. I got 7
yeah,
near the top, which is what I
this is a
wanted.
great this is a great synergy.
Yes, I agree.
Imagine you and me being The Rock and Vin Diesel and doing an awesome handshake.
Yeah, we don't
Like,
fight. We
oh,
don't.
like remember in 5 when he picks him up off the ground after his entire team gets
Yeah,
shot. Oh,
yeah.
great moment, great moment. But 9 for me is exactly what direction I want the series to go.
Okay.
I can keep listing off more memorable things. We've got the girl battle in Tokyo where they're fighting in an
Oh
apartment.
yeah, the
That's a
Fast
great
and Furious ladies.
sequence. We've got Dom Fording fighting approximately 40,000 guys in like a nuclear turbine or whatever while he
Yeah,
pulls out a building. What a great moment. This movie is just filled with exactly what Fast and
ridiculous.
Furious needs.
Yeah,
Ridiculousness, fan service, family interaction, group dynamic, memorable set pieces, great additions to the lore in terms of fleshing out Vin Diesel's history, Don Toretto's history,
hmm
and his family, giving us Jacob Toretto. I really love this, and it makes me so excited to see where the direction of this series goes. I don't know if you saw, we got another Fast and Furious movie in production today,
we're getting a Cipher spinoff,
a
which is
Cypher
not
spinoff.
not what I wanted.
Nope, she's also in this one.
Yeah,
Poorly used,
she's
pretty
in a
obnoxious.
she's in a glass cell. She's in a glass box until it's time for her to be the new villain
Yeah.
again.
But I've got hope. I've got hope it's
Yeah,
good. I think the direction that they're taking the series is fun. I like that they're introducing spin-offs, even if Hobbs and Shaw didn't particularly work for you.
Hmm.
Still a solid action time, and
Sure.
it gives us more time with Fast and Furious characters, which
Yeah.
is what we all want.
And of course, we're getting the 2-part finale at some point in the near future.
Crazy.
It's finally coming to an end, Tucker, and we'll be reviewing those. We'll be reviewing any other ridiculous summer blockbusters and things as they come out. So that's why you should subscribe to Backlog Banter for all of this great dynamic. Abram and Timo here are sometimes. If you want to talk to them, you should join that Discord link in the description. But that's that. That's our
That's
ranking.
that.
I'll flash it up one more time here.
Ooh, look at it, guys. Isn't it-
Wow. Ooh, look at that.
look how much editing effort he put in.
Okay. Thanks for watching, guys.